Hey everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
The wheels of my custom wheelchair locked as Mom yanked it backward, nearly tipping me onto the floor in front of 40 relatives. My spine screamed in protest. 3 fused vertebrae don't appreciate sudden movements. But I kept smiling as I pulled out my phone and composed the email that would destroy the legacy she'd spent 5 years building. Let me explain how we got here. The accident that changed everything. I was 23 when the drunk driver hit my car. Multiple spinal fractures, severe nerve damage, 6 months in the hospital, 18 months of rehabilitation. The doctors were blunt. I'd walk again but never without pain. Some days would be better than others. Some days I'd need the wheelchair. Mom was sympathetic at first. She visited the hospital, brought flowers, held my hand during the painful procedures. But sympathy has an expiration date and mine ran out around month 4. "When are you going to start trying?" she asked during one visit. "I am trying," I said, exhausted from 3 hours of physical therapy. "I mean really trying. You're young. You can't just give up." I hadn't given up. I'd learned to walk again with a cane. I'd regained 70% of my mobility. I'd gone from paralyzed to functional in 18 months. But to Mom, if I wasn't 100% recovered, I wasn't trying hard enough. "Your attitude is the real disability," she told me when I explained I couldn't return to my previous job as a construction manager. "People overcome worse." Maybe they did. But those people probably didn't have mothers who made them feel worthless for needing accommodations. The financial devastation came next. Medical bills consumed my savings. Disability payments covered rent, barely. I sold everything valuable I owned. I moved into a studio apartment in the worst part of town. And that's when I discovered I had a talent for something that didn't require a healthy spine: cryptocurrency trading. The silent fortune. It started with $300, literally all I had left after paying rent. I'd been researching blockchain technology during my hospital stays, fascinated by the decentralized finance potential. I saw patterns in the market that others missed. Timing windows. Arbitrage opportunities. Undervalued projects. 300 became 3,000 in 6 weeks. 3,000 became 30,000 in 4 months. 30,000 became 300,000 in a year. I was careful. Diversified. I didn't gamble, I calculated. I took profits. I reinvested strategically. While my family pitted me as the disabled daughter who couldn't work, I was building an empire from my laptop. By age 26, my portfolio hit $2.1 million. By 28, I'd crossed $8.7 million. By 30, my current age, I was managing $27.3 million across cryptocurrency, traditional stocks, real estate investments, and private equity. I lived modestly. Same studio apartment. Basic wheelchair. Thrift store clothes. Why? Because I'd learned that my family's love was conditional on my helplessness. They felt good about themselves when they could pity me. What would happen if they knew I was wealthy? I decided to find out, carefully, strategically, with an escape plan ready. Mom's hospital project. Mom was a nurse at Riverside General Hospital for 37 years. She loved that hospital more than she loved most people. When she retired at 62, her dream was to leave a legacy, a state-of-the-art cardiology wing. She started fundraising immediately. Bake sales. Charity auctions. Donor appeals. After 3 years, she'd raised $380,000. The wing would cost $4.2 million. "It's going to take forever," she complained at Sunday dinner. "I'll be dead before we break ground at this rate." I was sitting in my wheelchair, having driven myself to dinner despite the pain it caused. I'd learned that showing up despite difficulty somehow made me more pathetic in their eyes, not more admirable. "Maybe you could ask Alex to help," Aunt Diane suggested with a smirk. "Oh wait, she can't even help herself." "Now Diane," Mom said, but she was smiling. "Alex does her best with her limitations." My limitations were managing a $27.3 million portfolio, but sure. That night I created a shell corporation, Riverside Medical Advancement Trust. I structured an anonymous donation of $4.2 million to Riverside General Hospital, designated specifically for the new cardiology wing. The only condition: the wing would be named the Margaret Chin Memorial Cardiology Center, after my mother. The hospital accepted within 48 hours. Mom got the call 3 days later. The golden child. Someone donated the entire amount. Mom cried at our next family dinner, waving her phone. $4.2 million. Anonymous. And they want to name it after me. The family erupted in celebration. Champagne appeared. Toasts were made. You deserve this, Margaret, Dad said, beaming. After everything you've given to that hospital. It's a miracle, Aunt Diane added. I smiled from my wheelchair in the corner. That's wonderful, Mom. Congratulations. She barely glanced at me. Thank you, dear. This is the proudest moment of my life. Not my college graduation despite my injuries. Not my recovery from paralysis. Not any accomplishment of mine. This anonymous donation was her proudest moment. I took note. Construction began within 6 months. Mom was involved in every decision. Design, equipment selection, staffing plans. She gave interviews to local news. Her picture appeared in the hospital newsletter. She was finally the center of attention she'd always craved. At every family gathering, it was the only topic. The wing, the construction progress, the naming ceremony being planned. Mom's wing is going to save lives, my brother Marcus said at Thanksgiving. That's a real legacy. Not everyone gets to leave something so meaningful behind. He worked in insurance sales. I owned 8% of 3 medical device companies whose equipment would be installed in that wing. But nobody knew that, so nobody cared. Some of us contribute in visible ways, Mom said, looking pointedly at me. And some of us, well, we all do our best. I smiled. We certainly do. The deterioration. My condition was real and documented. 3 fused vertebrae L4-L5-S1. Permanent nerve damage. Chronic pain ranging from 4 out of 10 on good days to 9 out of 10 on bad days. Some days I could walk with a cane. Some days the wheelchair was necessary. But to my family, variability meant faking. Yesterday you were walking, Mom would say when she saw me in the wheelchair. What happened? Pain flare. The weather change. The weather. Right. Her tone dripped with disbelief. My pain management doctor, Dr. Sarah Kim, was appalled when I told her about these interactions. Your family understands that spinal conditions fluctuate, right? She asked. They understand that they don't believe me. Alex, you have documented medical evidence. Nice. Nerve conduction studies. Surgical reports. They think I'm exaggerating for attention. She looked at me sadly. Why do you still see them? Good question. Maybe I was waiting for something. Validation. Acknowledgement. Love that wasn't conditional on my suffering quietly and invisibly. Or maybe I was waiting to see how far they'd push me. Christmas at the family home. Mom and Dad hosted Christmas at their house. A 4-bedroom colonial I'd helped them buy, though they didn't know that. I owned the mortgage through another shell corporation and had reduced their payment by 60%. They thought they'd refinanced at an incredible rate. I arrived in my wheelchair. It was a bad pain day. August 10th, managed down to June 10th with medication. I could have walked with my cane, but it would have cost me 3 days of recovery afterward. The wheelchair was the smart choice medically. But it wasn't the convenient choice for my family's narrative. The wheelchair again, Mom sighed as I rolled up the ramp Dad had installed. I'd paid for the ramp installation through another anonymous community accessibility grant. They never questioned it. Bad pain day, I explained. You've been having a lot of those lately. It's a chronic condition, Mom. That's what chronic means. Or it means you've given up trying. I bit back my response. It was Christmas. I could endure a few hours. The house was full, 40 relatives, friends, neighbors. Mom held court in the living room, showing photos of the hospital wing construction on her iPad. The naming ceremony was scheduled for March, just 3 months away. Margaret, you must be so proud, someone said. I am. It's going to serve the community for generations. Real impact. Real meaning. I was sitting near the Christmas tree, my wheelchair parked beside the couch where the teenagers were scrolling through their phones, ignoring me. Aunt Diane approached with her signature fake concern. How are you feeling, Alex? I'm fine, thank you. Still in the wheelchair, I see. Have you tried yoga? My friend Carol had back pain and yoga cured her completely. I have 3 fused vertebrae and permanent nerve damage. Yoga won't. Well, not with that attitude. You have to really commit to healing. I smiled politely. I'll keep that in mind. She patted my shoulder like I was a child and walked away. Dinner was announced. Everyone moved toward the dining room, everyone except me. The dining room had 2 steps down from the main floor. Marcus, help your sister, Mom called. Marcus sighed loudly but came over. You need a lift? I can transfer to a regular chair and someone can fold the wheelchair. Just let me carry you. It's faster. He lifted me like a sack of potatoes, carried me down the steps while relatives watched, and deposited me in a chair at the far end of the table, away from the main conversation next to the kids' table. Thanks, I said quietly. No problem. Though if you used the cane more you'd probably build strength. He was an insurance adjuster, not a doctor. But sure, he knew better than my medical team. Dinner progressed. Conversation flowed around me, not to me. I was furniture. Decoration. The sad daughter in the wheelchair who couldn't quite get her life together. Then came the moment that changed everything. The breaking point. Dessert was being served. Mom's famous apple pie. She was talking about the wing again, describing the equipment, the design, the impact it would have. It's the culmination of my life's work, she said. Everything I've worked for represented in this wing. You should be so proud, Margaret, someone said. I am. Unlike some people, I've made something of myself. I've contributed something meaningful to the world. Her eyes flicked to me when she said it. Just for a second. But everyone noticed. Awkward silence fell. Mom, Marcus said quietly. That's not. What? I'm just saying that some people build legacies and some people build excuses. Alex knows what I mean. Don't you, honey? I smiled. I do, Mom. Good. Because honestly, I'm tired of tiptoeing around it. You had an accident. It was terrible. But that was 7 years ago. At some point you have to stop using it as a crutch. She literally needs a crutch, Mom, Marcus interrupted. You know what I mean. Stop using it as an excuse for not having a career, not contributing, not doing anything with your life except collecting disability and playing the victim. The room was silent now. 40 people watching. You're just lazy and dramatic, Mom continued, standing up. She walked over to my wheelchair. All this equipment, all this performance, it's too much. You're 30 years old. It's time to walk like normal people. She grabbed the handles of my wheelchair and yanked it backward. The sudden movement sent pain shooting through my spine. My vision whited out for a second. I gripped the armrests, trying not to cry out. Mom. Marcus stood up. What are you doing? Helping her. She's perfectly capable of walking. She just needs motivation. My aunts were nodding. Finally someone said it. Aunt Diane murmured. Dad sat frozen, saying nothing. Mom pulled the wheelchair completely away from the table, forcing me to either stand or fall. I stood. On shaking legs, pain radiating from my spine down both legs, I stood. See? Mom said triumphantly. She can walk fine. I took one step. Then another. Each one agony. But I kept smiling. You're right, Mom, I said clearly. I should try harder. Thank you for the motivation. The relatives applauded. Actually applauded my humiliation. I walked to the bathroom, 15 agonizing steps. Locked the door. Sat on the closed toilet and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking but my mind was crystal clear. I opened my email and composed a message to the Riverside General Hospital Board of Directors. Subject: Withdrawal of Anonymous Donation, Margaret Chin Cardiology Wing. Dear board members, I am writing to formally withdraw my $4.2 million donation designated for the Margaret Chin Memorial Cardiology Center, effective immediately. As the anonymous donor who funded this project through Riverside Medical Advancement Trust, I am invoking the withdrawal clause included in the original donation agreement, Section 7, Paragraph 3. Donor reserves the right to withdraw funding if recipient is found to be in material breach of ethical standards that reflect poorly on the hospital's mission of compassionate care. Margaret Chin has demonstrated behavior that is incompatible with representing a center for cardiac care and compassion. Therefore, I am withdrawing all funding. Please halt construction immediately and remove all signage bearing her name. The funds will be redirected to other charitable causes. Regards, Am Chin, Principal. Riverside Medical Advancement Trust. I hit send. Then I composed a second email to my property management company, instructing them to restore my parents' mortgage to its original payment amount, effective next month. Then a third email to my financial advisor, liquidating my 8% stake in the 3 medical device companies and moving those funds to investments with zero connection to Riverside General. 3 emails. 45 seconds of typing. 7 years of silent support erased. I stood, steadied myself and walked back to the dining room. The walkout. Everyone was eating pie when I returned. Mom was laughing with Aunt Diane. "There she is," Mom said. "Walking. See how easy it is when you try." I smiled. "You were absolutely right, Mom. I needed that motivation." "Thank you." I carefully lowered myself back into my wheelchair, not because I couldn't stand but because I was done performing for them. "I'm going to head home," I said. "Long day." "Already?" Mom looked disappointed. "We haven't done presents yet." "I'm tired. But thank you for a memorable Christmas." Marcus helped me back up the steps. At the door, Mom hugged me. "I hope you understand," she said. "I only push you because I love you." "I understand perfectly," I replied. I drove home, took my pain medication and waited. The phone call January 3rd. The hospital board met on January 2nd to discuss the construction timeline. They discovered the withdrawal email on January 3rd, when they tried to process the next construction payment and found the account frozen. The hospital administrator, Richard Torres, called Mom at 9:47 a.m. I know because Mom called me at 9:52 a.m. hysterical. "Alex. Oh my God, Alex, something terrible happened." "What's wrong?" "The donation. The 4.2 million. The donor withdrew it. The hospital just called. Construction is stopped. The naming ceremony is cancelled. They're threatening to sue." "That's awful, Mom. Why would they withdraw it?" "They said," she was crying now. "They said it's because of ethical concerns about me. About my behavior. But I haven't done anything. I don't understand." "Did they say what behavior specifically?" "No. They won't tell me. They just said the donor was anonymous and has the right to withdraw based on some clause in the agreement." "Alex, this is my legacy. My entire legacy. What am I going to do?" I was quiet for a moment. "Mom, did something happen recently that might reflect poorly on you?" "Like what?" "I don't know. Maybe something at Christmas? In front of a lot of witnesses." Silence. "Alex." "Yes. You don't think... the wheelchair thing? You mean when you called me lazy and dramatic in front of 40 people, then physically grabbed my wheelchair and forced me to walk despite my documented spinal injury?" More silence. "Alex, you don't think someone there... the donor was at Christmas?" "I have no idea who the donor is, Mom. They're anonymous. But if they were there and they saw how you treat disabled people, including your own daughter, maybe they decided you shouldn't represent a hospital wing dedicated to compassionate cardiac care." "Alex, please, if you know anything." "I know that actions have consequences, Mom. You taught me that." "I didn't mean, I was just trying to help you." "Help me. You humiliated me. You dismissed my documented medical condition. You physically assaulted me by yanking my wheelchair. And 40 people cheered you on." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I'd known." "If you'd known someone important was watching, you wouldn't have done it? That's your concern? Not that it was wrong but that you got caught." She was sobbing now. "Please, Alex. If you know who the donor is, if you can help." "I can't help you, Mom. I'm just lazy and dramatic, remember? What could I possibly do?" I hung up. She called back 17 times. I didn't answer. The revelation, 1 week later. The hospital scheduled an emergency meeting with Mom. They wanted to understand what happened so they could potentially approach the donor about reconsidering. Mom begged me to come with her for support. "Please, Alex. I need you there." "Why would you need me? I'm not involved." "You're my daughter. Please." I agreed. Partly out of curiosity. Partly because I wanted to see her face. We met in the hospital's executive conference room. Richard Torres was there along with 2 board members and the hospital's legal counsel. "Mrs. Chin, thank you for coming," Torres said. "We're trying to understand what happened so we can address the donor's concerns." "I don't know what happened," Mom said desperately. "I've dedicated my life to this hospital. I don't understand what I could have done." The withdrawal notice cited behavior incompatible with representing compassionate care, the legal counsel read. Can you think of any incidents that might fit that description? Mom glanced at me. There was a family gathering at Christmas. I may have been insensitive about my daughter's disability. Insensitive how? I suggested she was being overly dramatic about her wheelchair. I encouraged her to walk more. The board members exchanged glances. Mrs. Chin, one board member said carefully, was this witnessed by others? It was a family party. About 40 people. And did any of those people object to your behavior? No. Most of them agreed with me. The room went quiet. Mrs. Chin, Torres said slowly, your daughter is here. Perhaps she could provide context. All eyes turned to me. I smiled pleasantly. I have 3 fused vertebrae and permanent nerve damage from a car accident 7 years ago. I use a wheelchair on high-pain days and a cane on manageable days. My mother believes I'm exaggerating my condition for attention. At Christmas she called me lazy and dramatic, then physically removed my wheelchair to force me to walk. 40 relatives applauded her for finally telling me the truth. The board members looked horrified. Miss Chin, Torres said, I'm deeply sorry that happened. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mrs. Chin, he turned to my mother, I think we've identified the problem. But I was just trying to help her. By publicly humiliating someone with a documented disability? By dismissing medical evidence? By physically forcing her to walk despite her pain? The legal counsel was reading from her notes. Mrs. Chin, if this had happened to a patient in this hospital, we'd be facing a lawsuit. Mom's face crumbled. What can I do to fix this? We need to contact the donor and see if there's any path to restoration. But honestly, Mrs. Chin, I'm not optimistic. Who is the donor? Can we reach out directly? Torres shook his head. They're anonymous. All communication goes through their trust. We've sent multiple requests for reconsideration. No response. There has to be something. Mrs. Chin, I said quietly, may I see the original donation paperwork? Torres looked surprised but nodded. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it, pretending to read documents I'd written myself. The donor is listed as Riverside Medical Advancement Trust, I said. Principal, A.M. Chin. That's not me, Mom said quickly. My initials are MLC Margaret Louise Chin. I know, I said. I pulled out my phone, opened my corporate records and turned the screen to show the room. A.M. Chin. Alexandra Marie Chin. That's me. The room went silent. What? Mom whispered. I pulled out my laptop, the one I'd brought for work, and logged into my banking portal. Riverside Medical Advancement Trust. Current balance, $4,200,000. Withdrawn, pending reallocation. I turned the screen to face everyone. I was the anonymous donor, I said calmly. I funded the entire cardiology wing. $4.2 million. I designated it to be named after my mother because despite everything, I wanted her to have her legacy. Mom's face had gone white. But at Christmas I realized something, I continued. Someone who treats disabled people with that level of contempt, including her own daughter, shouldn't represent a hospital. Especially not a cardiac center that serves vulnerable patients. Alex, Mom breathed. You have $4 million? I have $27.3 million actually. The $4.2 million was just one donation. I also anonymously funded your mortgage refinance, the accessibility ramp at your house and several other family expenses over the years. Because I'm lazy and dramatic apparently, but I still loved you. I closed my laptop. Loved, Torres repeated carefully. Past tense. I'm still deciding, I said. But either way the donation is withdrawn. I'll be reallocating it to the Disability Rights Medical Advocacy Foundation instead. They actually understand compassionate care. I stood steadying myself on my cane. Miss Chin, Torres said quickly, before you go, would you consider restoring the donation if your mother completed disability sensitivity training? Perhaps issued a public apology. I looked at my mother. She was crying, mascara running, her perfect image destroyed. Mom, I said quietly, do you understand what you did wrong? I embarrassed you. No. Try again. I dismissed your medical condition. Keep going. She was sobbing now. I made you feel worthless. I spent years making you feel like your disability was a character flaw instead of a medical reality. I chose my ego over your dignity. And I taught everyone else in the family to do the same. I nodded. That's closer. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it or sorry you got caught? Both, she admitted. But more the first one. Alex, I never knew you were struggling financially. If I'd known you were successful. That's the problem, Mom. You only respect success you can see. You only value contributions you can brag about. I was building an empire while you dismissed me as lazy, but because you couldn't see it, it didn't count. I understand now. I do. I turned to Torres. I'll make you a deal. I'll restore half the donation, 2.1 million, with the following conditions. Everyone leaned forward. First, the wing will not be named after my mother. It will be called the Invisible Illness Awareness Cardiology Center. Second, my mother will complete 200 hours of volunteer work with disabled patients. Third, she'll undergo comprehensive disability sensitivity training. Fourth, she'll write a public apology in the hospital newsletter explaining what she did and what she learned. And fifth, the hospital will implement mandatory disability awareness training for all staff. I paused. If she completes all 5 conditions within 6 months, I'll restore the remaining 2.1 million. Deal. Torres looked at the board members. They nodded. Deal, he said. I looked at Mom. Do you agree to these terms? She nodded, unable to speak. I need to hear you say it. Yes, she whispered. Yes. I'll do all of it. Whatever it takes. Good. I gathered my things. The first half of the funding will be restored by end of business tomorrow. Construction can resume next week. I headed for the door. Alex. Mom's voice stopped me. I turned. How long have you been wealthy? Since I was 26. 4 years. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted you to love me when I had nothing. Instead, you showed me exactly how you feel about people who don't meet your standards. I smiled sadly. But thank you for that. It taught me that family isn't about DNA. It's about respect. And respect has to be earned. I left her sitting there, surrounded by hospital administrators, facing the consequences of 7 years of cruelty. 6 months later, the naming ceremony. Mom completed every condition. 200 hours with disabled patients at the hospital's rehabilitation center. 40 hours of disability sensitivity training. A public apology that went viral because of its brutal honesty. She became an advocate for invisible illness awareness, speaking at medical conferences about her failures and what she'd learned. The hospital implemented comprehensive training. Staff who worked with Mom said she'd changed, actually listening to patients, believing their pain reports, advocating for accommodations. True to my word, I restored the final $2.1 million. The Invisible Illness Awareness Cardiology Center opened in June. At the naming ceremony, I gave a speech from my wheelchair. A bad pain day, but I wouldn't have missed it. This center exists because someone believed invisible conditions deserve visible support, I said. Because chronic pain, chronic illness, and invisible disabilities are real, documented, and deserving of compassionate care. And because sometimes the people who hurt us the most can learn to do better, if we give them a chance and they do the work. Mom spoke after me, her voice shaking. I almost lost this legacy through my own cruelty, she said. My daughter funded this center anonymously because she loved me despite how I treated her. She withdrew it because I needed to learn that compassion isn't just for strangers. It starts at home. I'm grateful she gave me the chance to earn it back. And I'm grateful to every patient who taught me what my daughter tried to teach me for years. Invisible doesn't mean imaginary. The audience applauded, genuine this time, not mocking. After the ceremony, Mom approached my wheelchair carefully, asking permission before touching me. Thank you, she said quietly. For the second chance. You earned it, I replied. The question is, will you keep earning it? Every day, she promised. Every single day. We're not perfect now. Some family members still don't understand. Some still make insensitive comments. But Mom shuts them down immediately every time. Alex's disability is real, she says firmly. I learned that the hard way. If you can't be respectful, you can leave. It's not the family I was born into. But it's becoming the family I choose to keep. As for me, I still manage my $27.3 million portfolio. I still have good days and bad days. I still use my wheelchair when I need it without apology. But now when I roll into family gatherings, I'm not furniture. I'm not decoration. I'm not the sad daughter who couldn't get her life together. I'm the woman who built an empire, funded a hospital wing, and taught her family that respect isn't optional, it's required. And nobody calls me lazy anymore.